we're going to try to help you as a team member identify some areas that can make your team better. Because as it says, teamwork makes the dream, it makes it work. As teamwork makes the dream work, essentially means that dividing tasks and responsibilities among a team can lead to better outcomes than a single person doing the same task. Do you agree?
Yes.
All right, so you're all part of a team. You're all willing to work on those goals to make the dream work. As a member of teams, you are on a judging panel where you're one of 2 or 4. You're also part of a team when you're judging a meet, so all of the judges together. You're also a team when you look at all of the members of NAWGJ. And then you've got your state committees, and all those same things happen at the regional level. We have the regional membership, we have our regional committees. At the national level, there's a lot of committees that we're all on, and we work as a team to try to help make things better for you. But we're also part of a team outside of just, like USAG. We're members of all the different organizations that NAWGJ represents. So teams have a purpose. And so when we're on a team, we kind of ask ourselves some questions so we know what the purpose of our team is. And these are some questions that we came up with to help you figure out, as on your team, like say you're on the state committee, what is our job as a team? Are we here to make the membership have better education? And then why? Why are we doing that? And then the last one, what benefit do we have to bring to our membership in this gymnastics community? Because what is the purpose of NAWGJ? It's judges' education and the promotion of gymnastics. Okay. Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, stinky fish. Stinky fish. Me. I'm not the stinky fish. Did you see how the fish?
We've always been on teams, so everybody's been on different types of teams, all sorts of teams that you work with, right? So, and you know those teams, sometimes there are issues on teams, right? Things that are bothering you, you don't really want to talk about to anybody, and they're causing problems within your team. They're interrupting the teamwork. And the longer that you hold on to those things, the harder they get to work with and to think about. So you have a stinky fish here. So think about the teams that you're on in the gymnastics community. Think about maybe that thing that interrupts the flow of your teamwork, that bothers you. The longer you carry it around with you, the stinkier it gets. Okay, so let's not use any names, of course, initials or that person, or but just, or a situation or a goal that maybe you don't agree with, or you just can't get on board with, or a project that you just can't get together with, those sorts of things. So think about it for a second, okay? Write it down on here, okay? Just a few words that would explain it a little bit to somebody else. And then we're going to put them out. We're going to look at each other's. We're going to think about it. We're going to talk about it a little bit. We're going to get up. We're going to put them on these outside tables. And we're going to kind of make a gallery walk. gonna wrap up our stinky fish. And if you look up at the screen, we made a little summary of some of the commonalities that we saw amongst the stinky fish, which makes it nice for us to see that we aren't the only ones that are having difficulties. And we have many of the same things that happen to us. So we're hoping that maybe you have some ideas about things that you might have done to help foster unity in your group, or help people be more comfortable with change, or some different things. So if you have anything that you've done in your state that really helped with any of these difficulties, if you would just be willing to share it, let us know. Okay?
I think like every state, we have complaints about assigning, transparency of assigning, unfair assigning. So what we did during our open meeting last year was we created sort of a fake meet in Gym Jazz, and then showed what an assigning meeting looks like. And we showed them the process we go through and how we determine which judges are going to be on which meet. So we just made basically like 3 fake meets in there. This meet, had these judges requested, so they're going there. And then we need 8 judges here, but you don't have the right rating, so you are automatically off that list. So we just kind of did a transparency meeting so they understood how an assigning meeting happens. Because I think there's a lot of concern and mystery about, how do you choose that judge? And we were trying to just make it a little more like, this is how it actually happens. And then when we get to the bottom of the list and there are no more judges, that's when we're going out of state. That's when we're calling you up. And it's not that we're calling one person, we're just trying to find a judge. So
that sounds wonderful. And transparency is huge. Be transparent about your finances, be transparent about your processes. Anybody else have anything that really struck them that they might have?
So what we did is I made sure that I would communicate everything, probably over communicated things to my members so that they would know what was going on. They felt like they were a part of what was going on and could talk about, add any information should they have any concerns.
Communication is also a huge one. So, if you only do 2 things and they're be transparent and communicate, that's going to take you a long ways. So, as I said, these kinds of stinky fish are things that we deal with all the time in all the communities that we're in. So, for us to be able to work as a team, we need to work really hard at saying, what is the goal? What is the goal for our state committee? What is the goal for our state membership? We need to know what the goal is. We need to know exactly what our responsibilities towards the goal are.
Dealing with difficult, I've had a lot of experience running and being the top of organizations and whatnot. And we were kind of anticipating, what are they going to say? And we were anticipating, maybe you were saying difficult people, or maybe assigning, were things we were maybe anticipating, because we're like, well, how can we be ready to talk about this unless we kind of have an idea? I'm a doer, you give me something to do, I'm just going to go do it. And I know that about myself, and I know that one of my issues is making sure that I've let everybody know what's going on, making sure I get the right permission. I'm just like, let's go. So that was one of the things for me, is slowing down, being a little more patient, because I'm not always the most patient person. I want to get things done, and making sure that communication is happening in it's more than just an email, guys. You say, oh, I communicated. I sent an email. Well, did they read it? What's the chance they read it? 25% maybe? Maybe 50%? We all have too much email. Well, I texted them. Well, you know how that goes too. Sometimes people don't even respond to that. I had a situation just this week. I needed to listen. I needed to find out what some people were thinking. So I took them out to lunch. So we get our lunch and these people look at me and say, well, okay, what's it all about? And so this is what it is. It was one of those kind of hard conversations and yet necessary. And once you do that, man, it works so good. Thankfully, as long as you're coming at it, again, with that attitude of, I'm here to listen, I'm here to hear your side of what's going on, I'm here to hear your opinion, and that can take time. We're so time starved sometimes, right? And then you get into the difficult people. Raise your hand if you do not have a difficult person to deal with in the gymnastics. If you do not. Okay, everybody? We all have difficult, right? So, I don't know about you, but I'm not always really good on the spot. If someone says something or does something, I'm not good on the spot. And I admire those that are. And I go home and I think about it and probably don't sleep. And, you know, and I had a situation with a judge. And I thought, you know what? I don't have to react on the spot. So I went home, I wrote everything down that happened. I looked up the Code of Professional Responsibility, not just for judges, but for USAG has a code. And I looked at everything, I said, okay, I'm going to call this person on Monday once the meet is done. I wrote out a script because it's too hard, right? I'm too emotional. But a phone call, okay, wrote out the script, read the script twice, asked if there was anything else. No, said, okay, thank you. Done. Did it make the situation perfect? No. Did it ultimately improve the situation? Yeah, it took about a year, but it did improve it. So it's hard sometimes. We appreciate you guys being honest here with this stuff, but sometimes you just gotta have that difficult conversation. Another thing that seems to work is appreciation. Okay? Can you find something about everybody that you appreciate? And specific appreciation. Okay, we'll try this with Annie. Annie, thanks for being here today. This was great.
Oh, yeah.
That's choice 1. Choice 2. Annie, I really appreciate, we met 3 times and you worked on those PowerPoints and you did some research to find some things that might help with that. I really appreciate that.
Oh, gosh. Thanks,
Okay, did either of those things cost me any money? Did either of them cost me more than 30 seconds of time? Okay, but what happened? Sometimes just saying I see you, I understand you, I appreciate you, it just will go so far. When I was working for the government, we had no money, we had nothing. I mean, some think, oh, the government has it. No, we were cut. It was terrible. And I held a session with the employees, with everybody. And I talked about appreciation and about doing specific appreciation, about noticing people, okay? And we just talked about it. And then they started sending me emails. I'm like, well, I wasn't expecting that. But it was like, oh, okay. And then one of the things I did, I go, well, I can figure out when everybody's birthday is. I didn't know how old they were, but I knew their birthday. And I thought, well, I've got extroverts. The extroverts want to party and they want everybody to know it's their birthday. But I got introverts. They don't want that so much. How do I deal with this? I said, well, how about an email? I think the introverts will be okay with an email. And the extroverts, well, at least I noticed them. So on the birthdays, I put it on my calendar and I sent them an email. It was as simple as, happy day, just wanted to wish you a happy birthday. That's all it was. I got paragraphs back from people. They told me about what their plans were for their birthday and their grandkids were coming over. One guy, I was always crying. He said, I've worked here for 30 years. My managers even never said happy birthday to me. I can't believe senior manager reached out to me and said happy birthday. It was just really interesting to watch things change by doing really simple stuff that we forget to take the time to do sometimes. And like I said, I'm a let's make things happen kind of person. So one of the things I always have to do is to remember to be gracious and to say thank you. And sometimes I even make my own list and say, make sure you send a card, make sure you do this, make sure you do that. It's simple, but I've seen it change whole organizations just by us as leaders and members of this organization, but stepping up and just doing, it's little stuff. It is not the big stuff. So hopefully that helps a little bit with some of your hard people. The one on here that I knew that I think I'm pretty good at was running an efficient meeting. So for a meeting, always have an agenda. Always have an agenda. That's number 1. Number 2 at the beginning of your meeting, do something to make everybody feel included. I will often do, I hate when they say, oh, let's do an icebreaker. Hey. I call it a question of the day, or coffee with the boss when I was working, whatever. It's just amazing spending 5 to 10 minutes of that much of an hour meeting of creating a group. It could be as simple as who's your favorite singer?
Oh gosh, Harry Styles right
Harry Styles. How about you? Who's your favorite singer?
Paul Simon.
Paul Simon, okay. And it can be simple questions like that. And you'll find that there's some commonality. You'll find some laughter. We're trying to make this a group. I need to at least do something to give us something in common. And I make it, I'm a little bit of okay, I want everybody to participate. And hopefully by the end of that, we're laughing. Okay, so that's about the best suggestions I have. Anybody else have anything with the difficult things? Is signing. Who here thinks they're an advocate for the judges? Advocate. It seems to me we don't have a lot of control over the assignments, right? Particularly, I'm thinking USAG level. We have almost no control at the NCAA level, so I don't think there's a lot we can do there. But there's 2 things that I can think of on each of those. For USAG, it's building that relationship with the state chair. And take them to coffee, take them out to lunch, do something, make sure you build a positive relationship. And you can be suggesting. You might be turned down. If they say no, come back the next year. And come back the next year. Back when I was RJD, took 12 years to get a 4-judge panel at our regional meet. Wow. 12 years later, we got it. I kept coming back. So that would be one suggestion. At the NCAA level, when we judge, there's room for you to make comments, right? Play offense, not defense. What I mean is if there's a coach that's misbehaved and you should have thrown a yellow card, write that up. They'll pair that up in whatever the coach said and whatever you said. They'll go, oh, the coach said this was the worst judge I ever had, and the judge said this coach did this, and this. And I would always suggest you always use facts. Don't tell me they lied and cheated or they were disruptive. Tell me what they did. You want to keep it clean in that sense. You don't use your opinion. You use the facts. And if you lay them out, it'll show me. I can come to that conclusion, right? Okay. That's probably enough of that. Strategies, okay. Okay, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit. Structure, that can be, if you're running a meeting, that can be your agenda. That can be how we're going to work. Have ground rules, have goals. Communication protocol. Sometimes that's hard. At work, I used to say 3 times and I'm out. If you need to communicate with me, give me 3 shots. Come to me once. If I haven't responded, come to me again. If you have to come to me the 3rd time, that's when you elevate and tell my boss. I'll be so embarrassed if that happens. So set up communication protocols. If you're an SJD, do you want texts? Do you want emails? Do you want a phone call? Do you want carrier pigeon? What do you want? Set that up. And then make a clear pathway for members. I'm not even sure what that meant. I'm sorry. Oh, good. I'm glad I'm going to turn this over to you. It's all yours.
All right, making a clear pathway for others means that you're making that clear foundation for your team so that the people who are going to be after you can go, oh, these are the things I really liked about what they did, and these are the things that we might consider changing. So if it's going from one state committee team to another state committee team, having things documented, having things clearly laid out with that structure really helps the next one. And being able to pass it on is great. The next thing that we do is once we have that team, we create goals. And so as a group, you're gonna say, okay, we're all here together. Let's figure out why we're here. And you try to brainstorm as many ideas. Why are we on this state committee? Oh, we're here to provide education. Oh, we want to bring unity to our state. So you take all these ideas from your team, and then you take each one of them and you clearly define them. So we want to provide unity in our state. That means that we want both the east side and the west side of our state to feel like they're one unit, not two separate units. Or we say, with our education, we want to make sure that we're providing education in these areas. And then as the team, the whole entire team, you go through each one of them and you kind of go, okay, which ones are the top goals that we want for, and you can kind of do a now, a near, and a far. And that's what NAWGJ did as the national office. 4 years ago, I think we did it. We had a whole list of things that we wanted to do near. Then we had a whole nother list of, we've kept that list, crossed some of them off, a lot of them. We've made a lot of gains, and education obviously being the most important one. So the whole group is trying to come up with, what do we think now are our top goals? And then you go through and you create, who do we want on that team? And you look at them and you say, where are their strengths, those individual people, and where are their weaknesses? Now, when building a team or a committee, you don't want like all of the really, assertive people on this team and all of the, people more like me that are a little more passive on this team. You have to have a really nice mix in your team. And you then, in that team, who's going to be the leader? Who's going to report back to the whole group? Who's going to make the timeline? And how are we going to know when we've finished it, okay? Or completed that goal? Then they go to action and they try really hard to say, okay, these are the things we're going to do to provide unity. Make weekly phone calls between, and do, add on a person on the call. And, we're going to, have fundraisers on both sides of the state or the middle of the state. So you really have specific targets and you say, okay, check that one off, we did it. But I think really the most important part of having a goal is to say, okay, I did it, but now I have to come back and I have to look at it and say, were the things that didn't work so hot? Were the things we should have done better? What worked, what didn't work? How do we revise it? And how do we keep going forward with it? So, does that make sense? Are we good? So goals are important, aren't they? Else you won't know why you're there.
For the ground rules, if you think about your team as a synchronized swimming team, so in synchronized swimming, you gotta be synchronized. You gotta all be committed to the goal. You all need to walk forward with the same goal because it's a disaster if you don't. Right. But you also need to think about the different roles of different members. So in a synchronized swim team, sometimes we throw that one girl up in the air and she does like a cool salto-y thing, and then she, comes back down and then she knows what to do next, right? So sometimes we have different strengths in our team members. We need to recognize those, we need to celebrate those, and we need to figure out how to work with them. When you have a specific goal, it makes it easier. When you have a specific role in that goal, it makes it easier. So when the whole team knows what they're doing, it works better. So when Robin and Denise and I know which slide we're supposed to be talking about, it works a lot better than us pushing each other out of the way and saying, oh, wait a minute, I wanted to talk about that one, right? So you need to know what your role is, you need to be committed to the goal, and you need to stay within your role while trying to support others and celebrate their part in the goal. Okay, so that's how a team works. We had quite a few comments about change. Change is always hard for anyone. Okay, we always have done it this way, and we're sort of stuck in this way, and we want to, that's the way we've always done it, and it's been good. But now, we have new people coming in, and they're saying, yeah, but what about this way? Well, we don't want to do it that way. So we need to be open to listen to other people's ideas, to talk about their ideas, not just listen and then swift them aside, but listen to them, talk about them, think about them,
see if we could make a committee to investigate that way to do it, or that goal area, or that different type of a fundraiser. See if it's a viable action for our team. Okay, so be open to all those different new changing directions that your team might be able to go. Because we're a competitive group, make sure that you're not competing with each other, because that really pulls the team apart. So if you feel like all of a sudden you realize that you're sort of feeling, oh, why is she doing that? I thought I was doing that. Make sure you stop, evaluate your specific goals, your specific part in the goal, figure out how you can either collaborate together, or you could maybe take a different role, or figure out why you have that sort of little rubbing between you, okay? Work with your leaders to help sort that out. Make sure you're clear on what the goal is and what your part is, so that you don't have those competitive kinds of things. Make sure that your talk within the group about the goals with your members is always positive. Okay, if you have problems between you, work them out somewhere else. Okay, work them out maybe with your leader, work them out, go up the chain if it's a difficulty with your leader. Okay, use your resources and make sure that you're showing a united and positive face to your membership, because they're depending on you. They're depending on you to do those fundraisers, to get those things done, to do the assignment in a transparent manner so that they can see what's going on. The other thing is make sure that you're flexible enough, especially if you're in the leadership role, that you're flexible enough to think of different ways to get to the goals. Make sure that you have integrity so that your actions won't be questioned. Make sure that you always take the pathway, take the high road. Okay, make sure that, especially as a leader and a member of a team, that you'll always do it that way. Here are the things that you get when you have lovely teamwork. Your efficiency and your output increase. It gives you a larger pool of resources, because if you examine the strengths and the challenges of everybody on your team, all of a sudden you realize that you have resources that you didn't know you had before. Okay, so find out what people do in the other side of their life. Maybe there's other things that you can pull on that you don't know anything about because you've been talking about gymnastics all this time. You understand better other people's perspectives, which is always good for us. Always good to open ourselves to other perspectives. Our growth and our learning increases. We have better solutions. Just our time together right here, right now, we learned a couple things that might help us, right? The last one here is fostering a feeling of belonging, and that also is a huge thing. We talked about making everybody feel like they're super valuable, making them feel like they belong. So no matter how different we are and how differently we think, we pull those people in, we hold them close, and we celebrate their strengths, and we all belong to the same team together. It's an amazing thing. This is where this is the pathway. If we have interaction, we respond to people, we're transparent, we manage the concerns of our community, we recognize accomplishments, and we have approachable professional communication. To me, those are 6 kind of columns that we need to think about. We need to fit our goals, our aspirations into those columns, and I think if we do that, we're going to be vastly improved. Okay, we might not solve both the problems, but people are going to like us better, right? And we'll have a more solid team, and that's a really important thing. So, any comments? Anybody think of an amazing thing that might help everybody else?
I deal with a lot of interesting people. My job is I work for UPS, and for a long time I worked at like midnight shift, which brings out some lovely, amazing characters. And you're right, they all contribute in their own little way. But I have found that if someone is coming to me super negative and super complaining, if I just call that out up first and say, do you just need to vent right now? Or is there a solution you propose? It cuts down that amount of negativity that I have to hear. And if they just need to vent, I'm okay. I'm good to listen. But if I just like cut it off at the beginning and say, okay, it looks like you have a lot of concerns. Do you just need to vent about them right now? Or is there something we need to do? It smooths that transition over a little bit.
Great. That's great.
wisdom.
And I also, it makes me think about, we had some difficulties at my little school, and we had some complaints. And they said there's not an official complaint if you don't propose a solution, which I thought was pretty easy.
Anybody have words of wisdom on drama?
I think as a leader, to stay even keel and non-reactive. If I'm in a situation where I can feel, I always sleep on it. Always sleep on it. Because it just takes a lot of you get a lot of clarity. And sometimes I wake up at 2, 3 in the morning, making notes, or like you said, writing out my response. But I just think if you're in that leadership role, and especially if you have a very highly volatile person, take that out, and you want to just, and especially if you know they're wrong. I think just taking time to take a breath, step back and sleep on it, it doesn't mean it has to be overnight, but it might be a few hours, might even be just, hey, you seem really upset, let's take a 15-minute break and come back and, that would be my suggestion.
And remember, once you put something in writing, what you think you said to somebody might be interpreted completely different. So you have to be really, really careful when you do an email, because not everyone is gonna look at it the way you wanted them to interpret it. And so just take those sort of thoughts, get them all out of your head, write them in there, put it in draft, and then go back and look at it maybe the next day or two. Very good.
I just kind of have a quick thing that I think about when problems come up, and or not necessarily problems, they could be positive things too. And it's always send positive things, talk negative things, meaning you go to that person one-on-one. You never send anything negative to anybody. You need to be face-to-face with them so that you can get a clear understanding of what happened, why they're negative, and you don't always get that, just in emails back and forth. So that's kind of what I keep in the back of my mind, Send positive, talk negative.
Yeah.
One thing that I always think of is that there's that perpetrator, victim, rescuer kind of triangle. And as a leader, I constantly get into I'm solving people's problems, and to recognize that you're in that cycle with that person, and to then turn it back on them saying, I'm not here to solve all your problems. You're a capable person to solve your own problem, kind of pep talk them into solving their own problems.
Yeah.
I find that really helps. But sometimes you get caught in that cycle. It's really hard sometimes to recognize you're in that cycle with them. So it's kind of stepping back, thinking this is just constantly going on, what's going on, and then realizing that you're letting it happen, you're being an enabler.
Right.
And just step back and get yourself out of that cycle.
All right, if you guys would draw a circle on your paper, a square, and a triangle. In the circle, write down things you might still question. In the square, write down things you got and you're gonna try. In the triangle, write down 3 things you're gonna take away.